Call to order our workshop as soon as Jim gets in here. Okay. Anyway, our John is, I believe, in transit, out of town, so he will not be here, I don't believe.
I think that would look good.
We've got items to discuss. Item number 2 on the agenda, oil and gas wells. Bruce, I think most of the program is yours.
Yeah, thanks. I sent out to you guys Stillwater's latest oil and gas wells ordinance. So once you guys have got those reviewed, give me back your response on that. I'll put together a cohesive ordinance and get it over to you guys. I did get a phone call from a representative of the Oklahoma Independent Oil Producers, and he approached me in kind of a negative light about the Stillwater's ordinance, and I asked him what in particular about the ordinance that he disagreed with, and he stated mostly some items about setbacks and decibel levels and all that kind of stuff. So I have a meeting set up with him in a couple weeks. At that point in time, I'll go over the ordinance with him, see what kind of objections they may have. I asked him if they were thinking or have brought litigation against Stillwater, so he said no, but that's something they'll be considering. So I'm going to have discussions with him before coming back to you guys for the final ordinance, so I'll be interested to see what they have to say. And we'll go from there. So any questions on it, but just so everyone knows, what we're looking at is all these surface areas of oil and oil and gas wells. What we're looking at is what people aesthetically do, how they clean up the property, the ingress and egress. So a lot of those things that are functions of planning and zoning from the city side. We don't have any authority below the ground. Cities have the authorities above the ground. So if anybody has any questions regarding injections and those types of things, those still go back to the Oklahoma Corporation Commission, because they're the body that is in control of those things that go below the surface when it comes to oil and gas wells.
Have we got a mineral, what the production was out of mineral wells?
Yeah.
Dry hole.
Is it really? No kidding?
That's unusual anymore.
I thought they hit the mother lode.
It's a vertical well, wasn't horizontal.
Oh, it wasn't, okay.
Dry hole, huh?
Okay,
I
so
hate
they
that.
didn't,
Now that's like the one after by Seward, the same thing there too.
I didn't even know they drilled that kind.
They just do a few of them.
I noticed I haven't seen any trucks, so I figured something to do with it. They capped it because oil so
Yeah.
low, or
Yeah.
there's a dry hole on them.
Have there been any guidelines that have been set on like a state level that reflect the decibels or reflect the distances from protected properties, those kinds of things? I asked you the question, where did they come up with the 222 or whatever it was feet from protected properties and double that from non-protected properties? Was that just something out of they grabbed out of the air?
No, I'm gonna have a discussion with Stillwater here before too long about how they determine their setbacks. But also, if you go back, what's your current setbacks on residential housing and where they set and how they set. They kind of go through a progression on when they were built, how they were built, and the construction standards at that point in time. So we'll see if we can't figure out exactly what the construction standards. But oftentimes, especially when you're talking about setbacks, I don't know if I've ever seen a scientific study that says this setback is better than this setback. So at the end of the day, it still comes back to the community and the standards it wants to set for itself. So I don't think we'd ever want to give up control of having the ability to set our own setbacks.
Right.
So.
Okay, all right.
Item number 3, Purple Heart City. I'll pass around this piece of paper, but I'll let the mayor talk about this a little bit too. We've been approached by the local Purple Heart organization that they'd like to see us designate the city of Guthrie as a Purple Heart community. And essentially what it entails is having a proclamation and also erecting a sign letting people know that they're coming into Purple Heart City. And we'll get all the specific information about the number of Purple Hearts that we have within our community and what the organization entails about being a Purple Heart. So
yeah, we do have, I don't have the exact number, but we do have a fairly high percentage of Purple Heart veterans in Guthrie. And the group did approach us. I believe that there are, at present time, 9 cities in Oklahoma, 6 or 9, that are already designated as Purple Heart cities. They would like to eventually create what's called a Purple Heart Trail. If any of you have noticed driving down I-35 in Texas, there's a Purple Heart Trail designation for I-35. And obviously I think their thought process is to kind of continue that. And since we are on I-35, that makes us a prime candidate. They would, the state would provide the signage for all 4 main corridors coming into the city. There would be a proclamation. There is no other responsibility that we would have per se. It's just a designation, again, reflecting not only for Purple Heart, but for all veterans in the community.
Any questions? All right, item number 4, itinerant merchants. I want to pass it out to you guys to kind of go over what we have in the city right now, information regarding the number of events. Last year, we had 40, I think it's 40, 40 events essentially. They came in, filled out our permit for an application for having a special event, and of those, I think 6, 7, 8 of them were actually either city-sponsored or city-provided insurance, and that's what I was going to kind of go over with you guys today as kind of a basis of what the events, how many events we have, who's sponsoring the events, the size of the events, then what we're doing for the special events themselves. I know that you guys were given a copy of Broken Arrow's Itinerant Merchants Ordinance, and in that ordinance it stated something about 501c3s. It also stated something in there that there's been a setback that those people who have an itinerant merchant's license weren't allowed within 250 feet of a event that is essentially either a city sponsored, city partnered, city cooperated, or a city actually signed off on the dotted line type of event. So I kind of wanted to go over with you guys some of the specifics about that, and also kind of give you an update exactly what we do internally. And I want to kind of start off with that. I know that we've been holding events such as the 89ers for years now, and when people come in just for that event to get an itinerant merchant license, Kim had stated to me that we automatically turn them over to the 89ers committee. We don't issue them the itinerant merchant's license and make them go through that. We make them sign up through 89ers. So that would alleviate a lot of the issues that we've had in the past, and alleviate the issues we think currently have, is that we're not sitting around just sending out itinerant merchants left and right without that organization knowing exactly what merchants are coming or what they're providing at that special event. So that kind of takes us back to the Broken Arrow one, is that if you draw a circle around an event of 250 feet, and I don't know how exactly you go out and execute that based upon the language that they're using. A lot of the itinerant merchants that we may have and give license to throughout the year, what does it actually mean to be essentially either a city sponsored or a city permitted, and I think I'm gonna go get there, or a city contracted event. Because at that point in time, all those merchants that you guys had licensed throughout the year, when you do bring events in and you say that it's contracted, what do we define as contracted? Does that mean the city's actually in contract? Does that mean the city permitted it? Or does that mean the city's providing insurance for it? And at that point in time, it kind of also is cross-logic to them having their actual license anyway, because that's when the most people are in town, then you're saying stay away. So a lot of the itinerant merchants we have are local merchants, and it seems like to me that's who we want to be promoting throughout the year and throughout all those events and activities. So with that being said, I'll kind of open up for discussion and see if we can answer any questions you guys may have.
Well,
Now, yes,
I
because-
think the key issue is that some of these events, and I'll speak specifically the 89ers, of which I'm knowledgeable, sell vendors space at their event. And let's just say, I don't know what the number is, but let's just say it's $400 for the week at 89ers. So they're selling a hot dog machine vendor, that space for $400. I think the concern was a vendor who has a license, is licensed here in the city, could come and set up, just say, in close proximity, pay nothing except for their permit fee, and be in competition with the vendor that is paying $400 to the sponsoring organization, the 89ers. Don't know about the other organizations here, I'm speaking strictly of the 89ers. So the concern of the 89ers was, how do we protect, if you will, the vendors that are buying the space and therefore being a revenue source for that particular activity?
How have they done it in the past?
They haven't.
So they've had the competition.
They've had, well, and it's, of course, with the onset of the mobile kitchens, if you
Yeah,
will.
food trucks.
Food
That's
trucks.
making a big deal.
You know, it's just becoming more and more a,
So they can buy a $400 permit as well, probably, right?
the 400.
Or whatever.
Yes and no. Again, speaking just for the 89ers, they, I believe, sell 28 food vendor spots and 40 other retail merchandise spots because of water access, of those kinds of things. So they are limited in the number that they buy or that they sell. And generally, it's a 90% return activity. So it generates, whatever that is, 28 times 400, that kind of revenue for the, in this case, 89er committee. They wanted to protect that
Right.
by proposing this. Some of the dialogue has been, okay, but what about the church group that has a youth group that's selling hamburgers along the parade route, and that's their fun. So that's why they introduced the 501c3, if you will.
Correct, and that's my interpretation of the ordinance that Broken Arrows has, is that 501c3 doesn't mean that anybody who's a 501c3 is exempt from having to come in and get a special event permit. It's what they're talking about is what the mayor had stated, is that the local churches, the Girl Scouts, don't have to come in and get itinerant merchants to go out there and set up shop in order to sell at, you know, either at the event or have an itinerant merchant license altogether to go out there. So that's the way that they defined it.
So that's the genesis of the issue, and it's just again recently occurred because of mobile food trucks primarily, and some concern that if this continues to happen, they will have less, potentially zero, vendors buying the space for $400 or $8,000 to $9,000 revenue stream for the committee to put on the event, and they're concerned about how do they protect that.
Has anybody visited with the local food truck people?
I haven't. I don't
I just
know.
wonder if that would be a concern.
Well, the difficulty is that you have different size events too, because if they do or do not sign up to be part of the 89ers Day, but yet they set up, they still have that right to do that under the itinerant merchant's license they currently have. But say that an event like Apothecary Nights, where they come and set up, they do it underneath the current license they have, but they're not infringing. Matter of fact, they're enhancing that particular event because it's not as large as an event, and they're actually one of the draws for the event. And that's the difficult part in writing any ordinance, is that whatever you write will have to encompass both sides and sizes of the special events that you have.
I would say that if we did get down to writing an ordinance, I think you could put in verbiage that said, unless the sponsoring organization approves it. So in the case of, Apothecary Garden Night, whatever, if we want to do something like herd on herd that Edmund does eventually, something like that, that could be worked out with the sponsoring organization blessing food truck A, B, and C to come in.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the past practice has been doing, is that once the special event party comes in and makes application, they designate the area that they're going to be, and that's where you set up the barricades, and they give all those retailers and vendors prime location within that. And that'll be the same thing on the upcoming block parties that we have, is that at that point in time, once the application is made, they'll get to be able to set up those primary spots for vendors and food trucks and however you want. Now, everyone else is just up for scramble and left to try to come in on the sides of it or the fringes of it. But that's why Kim's office has directed people back to the event, so those people get those primary locations that have already been designated out within the special event area itself. So.
Well, that makes sense a lot, especially in the 89ers, and I can understand because you're bringing in, or the 89er committee is bringing in and selling spots, say prime spots. Well, and it would be anything outside of a perimeter, and that's what you're all talking about, up to a 250-foot perimeter around, but outside of, you're not going to allow any other vendors inside that, or is it going to be like a location as the rings get bigger and farther out, the money gets less for, say, a permit?
I don't know. What they had proposed was 250 feet from the event. I think you all heard me ask the question, how do you identify the event, when Dave Wallach was here, and he said, well, the parade route is the event.
Well, that was the deal, they wanted the entire parade route,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
a pretty big stretch of ground.
And I'm not sure that somebody setting up a food truck up at the temple is in competition with the food vendors that are sitting up here on First Street, personal opinion.
Yeah.
But I do feel that if somebody sets up a food truck on Harrison
Right.
and First Street, that's pretty darn close.
Right.
And so I think there is an issue here.
The licensing organizations will have to have a map of where they consider their,
250 feet.
yeah, whatever they
Yeah,
say,
or they agree to.
where that's where they charge their
$4 or company on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just say 250 feet from a sponsored vendor spot. And they don't have a sponsored vendor spot on the parade route. They do on First Street between Harrison and
Yes.
Oklahoma.
That makes more sense.
That makes more sense.
But I think that, you can get into the language issue that could be, that can be massaged. But I think, I'm just expressing, that's what the general issue is. And they want to non-compete within a certain area of the vendor spots where they are renting. I think there's some legitimacy there.
And I'm going to have a conversation with Randall too about how they define their word contracted with. I'd love to know what Broken Arrow's attorney has when they consider to be something that's contracted. So that makes all the difference in the world too, on defining the area and the event and where it's at, how you can actually go out there, and if you do have to issue citations, are we have that ability to do that based upon the language that they've given over to us? So.
Well, again, moving forward, if we got to a point where this was actually an ordinance, I would suspect that it would be in the permit, that the permit is based upon, keeping that distance for these sponsored organizations or whatever, or the permit would be pulled.
Can you
Well,
simply exclude major events for the food trucks and make them get their permit from the event?
If we can define major events.
Well, I mean, we could list them if we know what they are, don't we?
Well, but you want to make sure that you can figure those out in the future also, so.
They have some issues with that.
Yeah.
Well, but we're only really talking,
We can put it in there that we define them in.
Yeah.
But see, on the other hand, if the 89ers sold out their 28 spots, and we had 50 other food vendors that wanted to come in, I think that's a draw.
Yes.
And I think that's good for 89ers indirectly, certainly the city. So how do you keep that balance, I think is the challenge.
Yeah, and that's, so we're gonna continue to look at that, and, you know, as we go forward and we see additional issues that come forward, we'll make them available to you guys and let you know what those are. And whatever information I find out in my discussions with the entire group of directors I have in Randall, we'll get that information over to you guys. So if there's something that we can come up that we think we can tweak that helps out all parties concerned, we'll bring it back for you guys.
So what about Veterans Day? I mean, on Veterans Day, they missed the parade, is that what,
We're going to that
That's the
next
next
one.
okay.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good segue right there. Special event permits. I do have actual copy of our special event permit, so you guys can more than happy to take a look at that. But one thing that I wanted to have a discussion with you guys in detail is when someone comes in and files for that special event permit, is that there's a lot more that goes into it than just, hey, we're going to have it and it's just going to be right down Oklahoma Avenue. Typically, a lot of these events have multiple segments of the events, and I'll give you guys an example. When I first got here, Guthrie Art Walk, that weekend, I think we had 3 separate events going on. So we had the International Bluegrass Festival, we had the Art Walk going on, but we also had a barbecue cook-off that was taking place right across on the north side of Harrison from the Rock. Well, there was multiple issues that came up with that, because when you go and ask someone, hey, we're going to be having a parade down Oklahoma at a certain time, and then we're going to be having, you know, and setting up for the art walk at a certain time, but we're also setting up on the backside of your guys' buildings too when it comes to the barbecue festival, is that when you go and you talk to them, more than anything else, what that does is allow people to communicate back and forth and know exactly where they're at and what they're doing. We had an incident where employees at a business that was on the west side of, on the east side of Division along Oklahoma, employees park in the back, but that particular parking lot was taken up at that point in time, and they were starting to call to have that car towed. So anyway, if people didn't go out there and stop and have the conversation at that point in time, that car would have been towed, and you probably would have had one of our local business owners, you know, calling you guys up the next day, saying how awful we all are for allowing that to happen. So it's a lot more complex than just, hey, we're going to have an event down this street at this point in time. You know, everything's going to go okay. The city's going to do it anyway. What we want to do more than anything else is foster the environment and the culture where we continue to talk to each other as citizens of this community and know what's going on certain dates and certain times in all the locations of the events, so we can know that we can plan for something coming ahead. Because that's my conversation with the business owners, that in the future, whatever comes up, you will be notified, whether it's by the person putting on the event, the city, whatever it may be, so everyone knows what's going on that date, so we can all make proper plans and preparations for that event to be as successful as it can. And my only other example was I had a conversation also with another business owner when we had a large event a few years ago, is that they weren't notified on the days that the downtown was going to be shut down, and they prefer to be away from downtown in order not to be disrupted in their services. And so that's something that we have to keep in mind too, is that if we do that too many times, we're going to take away the professionals which we're trying to recruit to our downtown. If you don't have access to your building, especially directly in front of your building, because there's a different mentality for people who buy products and services in a downtown like ours and those people who go to Walmart. You get out in the parking lot in Walmart, you may be a quarter mile away, but you'll still walk in and purchase Walmart. That doesn't happen in downtown. If you have to park a quarter mile away from your business or that you're wanting to go to in a downtown area, you just don't stop the car. You keep driving around.
Well,
and go elsewhere. So
I guess the point I was trying to make is Veterans Day is Veterans Day.
their
That's the same day
Their
every year.
application wasn't put in time for us to go out and get all the barricades, put them up, and coordinate with all the city departments, because you guys will see on that is that each and every one of my department heads has to check off on that and make sure that it's okay before I sign off on it and say that it's a project that's ready to go. That was one of those things where you have to have at least a couple weeks, if not preferably months in advance, to have all the known different segments of the event given over to us so we can properly plan from the street department all the way to the police department and everything else in between. So that's just one of those things where it wasn't given to us in time in order to execute the event.
No, I understand, and probably whoever the board of the Veterans Day Parade is, I don't even know
American
who that
Legion.
is. Huh? The American Legion. I mean, that's something that they should know right now on next Veterans Day.
Sure.
This is what we're doing. And we should either, give them a permit or forgo permitting for something like that. Would be my preference.
Yeah, we were in communications with them, and we want to continue to communicate with people, and let them know that we do need to have at least some leeway in time in order for us to have proper preparations internally to put on the events. You can't come up and put on a special event or a parade and have it done over a weekend. So.
There was a transition in leadership though, and that's exactly
that's
what
what that
happened.
felt-
Is
that's where it fell through the
the
crack.
new leadership didn't realize that they needed to get that endorsement from the businesses up and down the projected parade route. And so it didn't get done, and when they found out about it at kind of the 11th hour, it was really, really too late.
Right.
That has spurred some emotional responses, I think, though, about why in the heck do we even need to do this? Chief?
From my end, talking to some of these parade organizers, some of the reasons that they end up turning in their applications a little bit late is because they don't know, or they don't find out until the last minute exactly how many people are going to participate. So they don't know where they're going to start from, nor how many streets they're going to block off, and they don't know what to request from the city for services.
I can see that.
So they don't understand that it's quite a cumbersome thing to.
Yeah.
And they have turnover, and then the new people don't understand that, holy moly, they've got to request this from the police, this from the fire, this from the city.
It might be half the size this year or
Right.
5 times next year.
Right, and so they don't understand the breadth and the depth of their request, and so they get caught up a little bit short. And the Veterans Day thing was terrible for them and for us and for the community, obviously, and I think from this point going forward, I don't think that will ever happen again.
No, I don't think so.
But I think a lot of people that do parades learned a very valuable lesson from that, and I know we did on our end as well. But just getting that to where it's coordinated, where we have the people there. I know every time we have a parade and we have to close those streets off, it takes a ton of my personnel and a ton of Maxine's personnel to get those barricades dropped off, so they're there in place so we can throw them up and get that traffic blocked so we don't get people run over. And when they're not there, when I don't have people there and we don't have those barricades there, if the call is made to go ahead with that parade, roll those dice and let's pray that nobody gets run over.
Yeah,
And the parade people don't want to do that, and people with the insurance surely don't want to do that, and the city doesn't want to endanger lives either. So it's all this whirlwind that we're trying to put together, and we want those parades and we want those events just like everybody else. We absolutely do. It's good for the town, it's good for the community, it's good for the kids. I mean, it's a draw. But shoot, if we can't pull it off, if we can't pull it off safely,
Right, I agree.
holy moly, we don't. But we sure do bend over and try.
Yeah. Well, I think
We appreciate that.
I think the city does a great job with that. City employees do a great job in that preparation, because there's an awful lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. From the sponsoring organization, it does take some time to go door to door and get their approval. And the form does say the intent of the city is 100% approval. So technically, one could say that one merchant could slow the whole thing down. I think the intent is, if there is a merchant that has some concern about it, that the city has an opportunity to go talk to that merchant, along with the sponsoring organization, and try to figure out some way of working out a resolution. And it becomes, especially for, again, 89ers, where they've got the flag that goes full width of the street. Parking on the street is impacted. When they have big parades that have the band, parking on the street is a challenge and should be limited.
What about the shops? Do they have to get permits as well? I mean, do they have to?
They have to sign that it's okay
No,
with
no,
them.
I know that, but do they have to get a $400 permit from 89ers?
Oh, no.
Okay, I was thinking like Rick's Chocolate or
No,
something
no,
like that to
no,
be open
no,
and sell coffee.
No. The challenge is, as Bruce has stated, we just want to, how do we become civil with one another, that even if we have, that number one, people know what's going on, that we communicate with people so that they know what's going on downtown, the merchants know, people know that if they need to drop off mail at the post office, they aren't gonna be able to do it between these hours when the parade's going on, and so on and so forth. And if there is somebody that has a real problem with it, how do we sit down and discuss it reasonably so that we can continue to have events that we all want to have for our community?
The reason I bring up the merchants is because I think it would be their right to be able to serve during the parades. But if you have this 250-foot ordinance, that might be an issue. How do you get,
No,
I
it's
mean,
just, well, that's just, they,
Well, they're not.
yeah, they're not itinerant merchants though,
It's
they're
itinerant.
brick and mortar, so.
It's the itinerant merchants,
Yeah.
the food
okay,
trucks.
so
It's the
but
food
that's all
trucks.
they're trying to keep from competing is the,
It's the
okay.
mobile,
Yeah.
it's the mobile guys coming in.
So I don't know, again, I don't know what the solution is, but clearly we can't go through what we did for Veterans Day. And it was just a perfect storm negatively, and I don't think that'll happen again.
We used to have.
And that
Mobile soda
application's on our website.
I remember we had, when I was a little kid growing up, we had those
Every
guys
time up here to
walking
get
down.
it.
And they,
Just started.
you know, the Boy Scouts would gripe about it all the time, they'd come, my dad would complain constantly about it.
Any other questions on that?
Nope.
Okay. TAP grants, you guys probably have on your next, go ahead. Go ahead, Superintendent.
So what are we gonna do with this?
No, we're just gonna update you guys on that and have a discussion on that. Is that, oh, my bad. I do have that already marked off. On the special event permits, we just wanna give you guys, an understanding of currently what the processes are. You guys have an excellent application. It's probably one of the better ones I've ever seen. It's actually more in depth than any community that I have come from. You guys have wonderful downtown merchants. You guys have wonderful events and activities. We just want to make sure that we continue to have all of these things working in conjunction and with each other to make sure that we continue to have wonderful events in our downtown area, promoting us as a high quality of place to live, work and play. But we want to do that in such a way that we're also not taking away or deterring long-term business here also. And so as long as we, like the mayor said, we continue to communicate and we're civil with each other, I think these are all issues that can work out and that can all be worked out within the current framework that we have in place with the community, with the city.
If you do an ordinance, and I don't mean to beat this horse, but if you did an ordinance for, like, on the 89ers, but it would have to encompass everyone.
Sure.
You can't just do for one and not another.
Right.
Technically, I guess you could, but couldn't you put an ordinance together that was specific like what that group is wanting? And then put a special use permit tag to that and not make it in other words, I don't know if you can do that or not.
No, that's something that Randall and I, like I said, it really comes back to the definition.
In other words, you have it in place already, but if you qualify 89ers, you get the special use, now boom, you fall under that ordinance. But
that's just
Steve Gentling, acrobatic show, you don't. So you don't get the special use.
No, it comes back to exactly what you said when you said qualify. It comes back to defining the words on how we execute whatever is defined in our ordinance, and that's something that Randall and I will have to take a look at and have a discussion about, and probably have a discussion with the city of Broken Arrow and their attorney about how they define the words that they are using in their ordinance. If we were to use it in our ordinance and how we execute our ordinance, how would we define those? So at the end of the day, if the 89ers or whoever event X is out there trying to execute their event and they see something that's negative or against whatever rules and regulations are set forth, and they come to the city, they can see the police officer on the street and says, hey, can you help us out with X, Y, and Z?
Right.
And he has the authority to go out there and execute X, Y, and Z. And that's something that Randall and I will have to have a discussion on. So.
And the Gentling acrobatic show was pretty good.
They dance on water.
I want to hold you to that.
Go back to
Okay, back to business.
Yeah, back to
Six.
item number 6, Adopt a Street program. Essentially, it is Adopt a Highway program, but on the city level. We already have everything that we need to place before you guys to allow organizations and individuals to adopt either segments of the community, segments of our streets, to go out and help clean up on a periodic basis. The communities I've been with, they kind of either do that on a quarterly basis or by a yearly basis, but they always do it in an April event that goes around with the Oklahoma Trash Off. So oftentimes communities will give over vests and trash sticks and bags and provide that to these organizations to go out there and clean up their segment of the street or the park or the public right of way, whatever it may be. But we just wanted to get you guys ideas and see if anyone has any questions, comments, or concerns regarding that, if we wanted to execute that going forward.
I'd like to see it include trails.
Okay.
Walking trails at Highland, for instance.
Oh, and the only other cost too would be the city is that we'll put up a sign recognizing the organization for that segment of the community.
And you say city parks would be involved?
Yes.
Would be,
Yeah, we can definitely
Yeah,
find
with
that out.
sponsorship.
great idea.
All right. Next item, number 7, discussion on the TAP grants. These are transportation enhancement grants. We'll be bringing 2 TAP grants before you guys. One is, of course, our downtown corridor. We'll have that in detail by the time it comes around to the meeting. But I will give you guys a little bit of an update, is that we're looking above and beyond just the intersection of Oklahoma and Harrison, but also to include the intersection, Oklahoma and Division. We'll also be including Division and Harrison. We'd like to be able to make that one large mirrored project where we're using the same company, the same materials, and being constructed at the same time. There's a lot of parts of the original project that was brought before you guys that may not be part of this project. Kind of let you be aware of that too, but we're in discussion with ODOT to see exactly what is allowable and what's not allowable when it comes to that project. The scope of the project monetarily wise has risen, but a lot of the infrastructure-wise stuff has been changed on where our actual project was. So we'll be making a recommendation. That's our primary TAP grant. They're going to fund one. That'd be the one we want funded. But because they keep pushing back the dates for the application, leads us to believe that they're either not noticing enough communities are ready to place in grants, or they want additional grant proposals put in. So we'll be looking at a secondary grant also, and that grant would be providing a sidewalk from downtown to industrial. And we're going to probably break that one up into segments where it will be going. So anyway, you guys can look forward to that at the next council meeting. Any questions on those TAP grants? All right. Drainage ordinance. City of Guthrie currently does not have a drainage ordinance, and we're having multiple issues when it comes to development, placing stormwater onto pre-existing structures and properties, and we want to look at bringing an ordinance to you guys that would, while they are in a planning stage of any development or any structure that's going to be built, that they take in consideration what they're doing with their stormwater and not placing it all over on their neighbors. Typically what happens if you allow enough development to take place without the ordinance, you end up getting areas on the low end of your community that ends up with all the water, and they have significant damage either to structures or to property because of the washout and the failure to properly plan. At that point in time, they cry, and to us as a council and as a staff, that why didn't we do something, or why weren't we forward thinking enough to plan out what's happening with stormwater. So anyway, we were going to be bringing that ordinance to you guys here in the future to look at making individuals who are making application to the city to plan for their stormwater. And essentially what we want to see done is that they either control it, put it in a designated area, but at the end of the day they have a zero effect on their properties or surrounding them. So any questions on that? All right, item number 9, cottonwood intake. We have been looking at multiple grants from the Department of the Interior, which would allow us to plan for, mitigate, and review possible drought conditions in the future. But with that being said, I think that would really go well with us possibly putting in a second intake on Cottonwood Creek, one closer to Fifth Street Bridge in the Elbow area. At that point in time, it would allow us to have more options on where we're taking our water in and how we're taking it from the Cottonwood, and also possibly allow us to look in the future when we construct a new wastewater treatment plant, also do reclamation if it's closer to this area than it is south of the city where we're currently doing our intake off of Cottonwood Creek. May also help allow us to have additional park area and use off of our downtown, depending on how high that structure is going to be created and what properties down there would allow us to have water on the properties.
Now, does that go in tandem with a low water dam? down
Yeah,
the
that's
center?
exactly right. It's just a second dam. And so we want to look forward to planning on that and having possibly a second structure in that area. So currently, I think their mitigation grants are somewhere in a couple $100,000 range. Mitigation maybe $500,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. So coupled with our $400,000, we're going to be trying to look at a couple dams in a couple different areas and see if we can't, again, get more options and see if we can create yet another area that would help us mitigate drought conditions that may be happening in the future.
What do you mean coupled with our 400,000?
You kind of good. For currently budgeted for this year is a dam on the Cottonwood.
Wasn't it 5 something?
It may be.
567 or something?
I remember 440, but we're in that sense. We're in the same neighborhood.
Okay.
So instead of just doing the one on the south end, maybe also looking at one on the north end of the Cottonwood too.
So these interior grants are matching funds?
Maybe. I haven't checked into it that far to see exactly where they are. But we want to make sure that we defined whatever the projects we are doing going forward, and it correlates with what our long-term plans are to both with our water and our wastewater plants.
So while we're on intake, what about the low water dam? I mean, has the Corps of Engineers stamped our approval on that deal yet?
Not at this point in time, so
Is there an issue?
no, that's just a review time.
They're just slow. It's the federal government.
Summer's coming, that's why I asked. Drought will be pounding on our door in no time.
You wanna go swim? Shh.
I'm gonna swim regardless.
Alright. Any other questions on the Cottonwood intake? Okay, next one, emergency notification systems. We currently have a emergency notification system called Blackboard, is that correct?
Yes.
Blackboard, I think next month will be our final month that our contract will be with them. It may be expiring. So I want to start taking a look at getting some other quotes on emergency notification systems. And also with that, there's a possibility of us looking also as an application that may help notify residents via text message of notifications. That's kind of that's something that's in city management world that's come up, is that if you get the phone call, oftentimes people let it go to voicemail, may not check it later, but it's amazing how many people check text messages. So we may be looking at a couple of different programs that may also allow the app to do some other things in the area of community development, economic development also. So
Is that similar to what the schools use when they have to notify, like send out a
Yes.
mass
yes.
text
Yeah.
to the parents?
Correct.
Or
Okay.
the,
Something like that already.
what's the red?
That's Blackboard, that's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I've got
Right.
one,
Yeah.
last we got, I think we had a tornado watch in the morning and I got.
We're just trying to see if that's the best course to stay with, or
Correct.
if we need to look at something.
And and the other thing too, I think, is you guys probably read in the paper last week where Oklahoma County in their emergency management department, we're looking at, instead of firing off all of tornado sirens, they're looking at locations. Well, the application that we're looking at too is maybe have a geo-fencing involved, which allows people in certain areas only to be notified instead of everybody getting notified. So say if there's a water leak that only affects the south end of town, everyone in town doesn't need to get a text to worry about their might not be getting water. So all those different scenarios, and we're going to be taking into consideration as we go out and look at these different notification systems. But I was kind of
on Facebook anyway.
well, I was made aware of it probably last month, so I want to make you guys aware of it, that we're currently looking into the notification systems. So
Well, tweet that.
Now, this doesn't impact at all the audio notification
No.
weather systems at all.
No, this is purely individual, either through voice, text, or email.
Because I think we've got some issues there too.
Sure.
We've got dead spots around the community that aren't hit,
Yeah.
that we've got to figure out some solutions for too.
And we highly recommend anybody come in and get that information, because even the notification systems that are outside, they're purely meant to be outdoor. I mean, that's what they're designed for, outdoor. And because we live in Oklahoma and we're all aware of it, tornadoes typically go to southwest and northeast. So if you're that person that's on the southwest end of town and you don't have a siren that's even more southwest than you, you're in trouble. So, and we have a lot of brick buildings down too. They do an excellent job of bouncing the sound off of them, makes it very difficult. So we always tell people that it's good to have that emergency notification system. You're signed up for it, you're prepared, so it goes directly to you in whatever spot that you are. And I still get code red calls from Grove. So I've just never taken myself off of it, but I can tell you whenever there's a storm rolling through there. So, any other questions?
Is there a timeline that you're looking at for?
I'm hoping within the next month.
Yeah, because ours is up in a month, right?
Yeah, they'll extend it, of course. But yeah, I'm looking within the next month to either put together a proper RFP for you guys, or if we have the ability to execute it, then we'll bring it back for you guys to have it executed without the RFP. But I want to look at all the scenarios that have currently available to us.
But all our tornado sirens and that type notifications all in working order at this point, right?
Well, they test them every week. I wouldn't say I wouldn't ever go out and say that they're 100% working on any given day. Those things stay outside. They're, in the weather. I've never known a complete system be all working at one time ever.
About
So,
half of them work.
yeah.
And the ones out in the southwest.
Last report we got,
Oh, I know they are, because they have been tested and all.
All right, the next item on the DWSRF fund. Back in 2008, 2009, you guys had a series of drinking water state revolving funds that you guys borrowed to construct a water treatment plant. That money was essentially put in with other monies from around the state. As a matter of fact, I think it was 32 communities and $80 million, and sold by the Oklahoma Water Resources Board in order to get the money secured in an interest rate for you guys to construct that water treatment plant. At that point in time, we take our interest rate and our principal and we make payments back to OWRP. That 2010 series is callable in 3 years. But because of the interest rates, which are at an all-time low, the Oklahoma Water Resources Board is looking at taking that entire 2010 series of 32 communities and $80 million and refunding it and refinancing it. If they do that, it gives us an opportunity to do one of two things. One is to take the refi from OWRB, split the savings with the other 32 communities, and continue to pay our loans off for the next 14 years. If we do that, our estimated cost savings are somewhere in the neighborhood of about $100,000 based on today's interest rates. But we also have a second option. When they do that, we can say we want to go to a private entity, i.e. banks, and ask for interest rates from them also. At that point in time, we can also take our 3/4 capital improvement sales tax and put that as additional security, which will help us get a lower interest rate. So that particular 14-year payback based upon interest rates and us paying back the interest that will be over the next 3 years, which is the difference between today's date and that 3-year callable, would probably save us somewhere in the neighborhood of about $650,000. So that may be coming up very quickly for us to make a decision on. Yes.
But by pledging the sales tax,
Mhm.
does that mean we can't use that money?
And this is what the other option that's above and
Exactly.
beyond that, is that if we do that, we also have the ability to go up and borrow an additional $3, $4, $5 million at that low interest rate. Right now, we're predicting somewhere around 2.3%. Our current interest rate of the water treatment plant is 4.51%. So that's significant savings. So that's what we'll be coming back with options for you guys, and I'll be presenting to you guys over the next week. Well, actually next week, because I'll be out for the rest of spring break with my kids. When I come back next week, I'll show you those different cost scenarios. And the way I've broken it down, if we went out and decided that we're going to have these 3 particular projects that we want to get done in the next 3 years. Say it's splash pad, pool, engineering for the wastewater treatment plant and the ball fields. We want to get started at, or the ladder truck, whatever they are that we want to execute over the next 3 years. That interest rate at 2.3% is still going to be lower than the interest rate if we went out and did it individually financed projects. So we'll be giving you guys that option too, whether or not to go out and just refi and save that $650,000 going through private banking, or we can also take out additional monies, take that sales tax pledge back towards it, and go out and get those additional funds. And so at any point in time that we want to take advantage of the opportunity to go out and execute the project, we can. We don't have to wait on financing. The financing's already there, available for us in the bank, and ready for us to just go out there
And
and
that
do.
would raise our payments then accordingly.
Yes, right now,
To cover those.
yeah, our payments, we're going to be saving probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about $40,000 a year on the refi if we go through the private institution, and we'll be putting that back towards our cost savings there. Kim and I will have a discussion on that, how we feel comfortable and presenting that to you guys to make sure there's enough security in the checking account to make sure we can cut the checks anytime we need to cut a check for principal and interest payments, plus go out there and execute those things.
So if I understand
Just wanna make
if I
sure.
understand the answer to Cheryl's question,
Yes.
the answer is yes, that money's pledged. No, you can't use it, but we can borrow money to complete the project.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Yep, you got it. That's it. Any other questions? All right.
Look forward to more of that.
Yeah, that's it. Anytime we can save the citizens money, we want to investigate it to the fullest. And Kim and I had that discussion, I don't know, 20 different times since I've been here, is that we wish those things were callable. You guys were us and the city of Muskogee are the ones that are on the highest interest rates right now. And we're thankful that there's an opportunity to go out and execute. The downside is if we didn't go out and execute now, once the OWRB goes out and sells those series of bonds again, those new bonds will not be callable again for another 10 years.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to say. So
Yeah.
right now, how many years left on our current note?
14.
14. And so if we refinanced, we'd be looking at 15 probably, or 20,
Yeah.
right? And so we'd be looking at the lifetime of the tax.
That's correct.
And so, I don't know about that one, but.
I will show you. To me, the rule of thumb that I give to our bond counsel and to our financial advisors is that whatever saves me the most money in order to go out and do the most amount of projects in a fiduciary responsible way, that's what we want to do. And so we'll be bringing all those options to you guys and on paper, in black and white, with numbers accordingly, so you guys can make the decision that
And
you
I
guys think is the most
suspect
favorable.
our window of low interest rates is somewhat limited too.
That's always a risk you take. I mean, it's a gamble at any point in time. You guys, you guys were unfortunate in 2008, 2009, that right before the financial collapse of Wall Street and
We're at high interest rates.
and the uncertainty of what was going to go on in America's future, you guys were in an undulating pattern of interest rates. So you guys happen to be on the high side, and I just about guarantee you a couple months later they're over on the lower side.
Yeah, but the good news is OWRF will probably secure a pretty decent refi rate as well.
Yes, that's correct. But
Probably
But at that
close
point in
to-
time, we're just a portion of the total,
Right,
instead of doing ours totally separated out as our own.
Independent.
Yeah,
right.
There's pros and cons on each side.
correct.
Okay,
Oh, okay, and
last item.
last item on here, you guys had, wanted us to bring you guys information so we can have, start having discussions about boards, committees, commissions. As I went through and started looking at the information that was given to me, the very first thing I found was questions about the size of the board, who appoints the board, who all serves on the board, the timing of the board. So we're under that period of time when we're investigating and doing our own research, so we can bring you guys back the most accurate, up-to-date information regarding all of those. So we'll have another, once we get all the information, we'll bring it back for a workshop and we'll have that discussion there. But preliminarily, because I found mistakes, I didn't want to present to you guys, so we're all having questions about what the mistakes are, instead of having a appropriate set of information that we know is accurate, that we can all have a good discussion based upon that information. So.
Good.
You got through it.
Are there any questions of anybody on any of these topics? Last thoughts, Bruce?
Well, there's Randall, you
Look
slipped
forward to
right
seeing
in.
7.
We're adjourned.